The shuttle landed on Waystation 12 with a soft hiss of pressure seals. Princess Valera Kethon stepped out into the cold metal corridor and looked around at what would be her new home. The walls were gray, the lights buzzed overhead, the air smelled like engine oil and recycled oxygen. She had grown up in palaces made of crystal and light. She had walked through gardens where flowers sang in the wind. Now she stood in a trading station at the edge of known space, waiting to meet the human she had been ordered to marry. Her father, the sovereign of the Kethon Empire, had arranged this marriage to secure a minor trade agreement with Earth. The humans wanted access to rare minerals. The Empire wanted their jump drive technology. A marriage sealed the deal in the old way. And since Valera was the third daughter, the forgotten one, she was the obvious choice. She did not argue. She simply packed her things and left everything she knew behind. A man walked toward her through the corridor. He was average height for a human, with brown hair and tired eyes. He wore simple work clothes, stained with grease. His hands were rough and calloused. "Princess Valera?" he asked. "Yes," she answered. "I'm Daniel Cole. I guess I'm your husband now." He said it simply, without ceremony or pretense. No fancy words, no attempt to impress her. He just stated a fact and waited for her response. "I suppose you are," she said. He nodded and picked up her bags. "I'll show you where we live." Their quarters were small but clean. 2 rooms, a tiny kitchen, and a window that looked out at the stars. Daniel had cleared half the closet for her clothes. He had bought purple flowers made of synthetic fiber because he had read somewhere that Kethon people liked purple. Valera looked at the plastic flowers and felt something strange in her chest. No one had tried to make her comfortable in years. "Thank you," she said quietly. Daniel shrugged. "It's not much, but it's home now, for both of us." The first weeks were awkward. They lived as strangers, sharing the same space. Daniel woke early each day and went to the repair bay where he worked on freighter engines. Valera stayed in the quarters, reading, thinking, trying to understand her new life. She watched the humans on the station. They were strange creatures, loud and emotional, quick to laugh and quick to anger. They seemed so fragile compared to her people. Short lives, soft bodies, no natural weapons or armor. And yet they had spread across the galaxy in just a few centuries, building, fighting, surviving. Daniel was different from the other humans she observed. He was quiet. He moved through the station like a shadow, noticed by no one. He never raised his voice. He never bragged or showed off. He simply existed, doing his work, living his life. Every morning before he left for work, he made her tea. He had learned how she liked it, strong, with a drop of honey. He set it on the small table beside her chair, and said nothing. Just a small nod, and then he was gone. She found herself waiting for that tea each morning. It became the best part of her day. One evening, she went to the station cantina to buy food supplies. The place was crowded with traders and workers, aliens of a dozen species, drinking and gambling. She moved through the crowd carefully, aware that she was far from home and had no protection here. 2 large cargo loaders blocked her path. They were Vorgan, a brutish species known for their strength and bad tempers. They looked down at her with hungry eyes. "Pretty little thing," one of them growled. "Kethon royal, are you? Long way from your palace." Valera straightened her spine. "Let me pass." "Or what? You'll call your guards?" "I don't see any guards, princess." A hand touched her shoulder gently. Daniel stepped past her, placing himself between Valera and the 2 Vorgan. He was half their size. He looked up at them with calm, empty eyes. "She's with me," he said quietly. The Vorgan stared at him. Something passed across their faces, a flicker of recognition, or perhaps fear. Valera could not understand it. Daniel was just a mechanic, a small, ordinary human. But the Vorgan stepped aside. No trouble, one muttered. We don't want trouble. They left quickly, pushing through the crowd. Valera watched them go, confusion growing in her mind. Why did they leave? She asked Daniel. He shrugged. Some people just want to avoid problems. They were afraid of you. Were they? He picked up a basket and started selecting vegetables. What do you want for dinner? But she remembered. Over the following weeks, she noticed other things. Daniel moved without sound, even in heavy boots on metal floors. His eyes tracked every door and window, every person who passed. When loud noises erupted in the corridor, a dropped crate, a shouting match, he never flinched. His body stayed relaxed, but his hands always moved slightly, positioning for something she could not name. One night, she woke to find him standing at the window, staring out at the stars. He did not know she was watching. His face looked different in the darkness, older, sadder. The face of someone carrying a weight she could not see. Daniel, she called softly. He turned, and the mask slipped back into place. The quiet mechanic, the ordinary man. Sorry, couldn't sleep. Go back to bed. She did. But she lay awake for hours, thinking. 3 months into their marriage, Valera realized she did not know her husband at all. He respected her space. He asked nothing of her except her company. He made her tea and learned 3 phrases in her language, and never once complained about the strange situation they had been forced into. But underneath the simple exterior, there was something else. Something hidden. Something that made cargo loaders twice his size back away in fear. She found herself wanting to know what it was. More than that, she found herself wanting to know him, the real him, whoever that might be. For the first time since leaving her home, Valera felt something other than grief and resignation. She felt curious. And somewhere deep inside, in a place she did not yet understand, she felt safe. The warning sirens woke Valera from sleep. Red lights flashed through the station corridors. People ran past her door, shouting in languages she did not understand. She pulled on her robe and stepped into the chaos. "What is happening?" she asked a passing trader. The man barely slowed. "Chthon warship, battle cruiser. They're demanding we open the docking bays." Valera felt her blood turn cold. A Chthon battlecruiser at a small trading station could mean only one thing. Someone had come for her. She pushed through the crowds toward the main observation deck. Through the thick glass, she saw the warship hanging in space like a dark predator. Its hull bore the crest of Admiral Zorveth, her father's most ambitious military commander, a man who had tried to claim her hand 3 times before her father sent her away to marry a human. The station's communication system crackled to life. A deep voice filled every corridor. "This is Admiral Zorveth of the Chthon Imperial Fleet. I am here to correct an insult to our people. The marriage between Princess Valera and the human is invalid under the ancient laws of conquest. I claim the princess as my rightful prize. Surrender her to me, or I will reduce this station to dust." Valera closed her eyes. She understood now. Her father had grown weak. Zorveth was making his move for power, and taking her as a wife would strengthen his claim to the throne. The marriage to Daniel meant nothing to him. Human laws meant nothing. Only strength mattered in the old ways. The station's security chief appeared on the observation deck. He was a tired man with gray hair and worried eyes. He saw Valera and walked toward her slowly. "Princess," he said quietly, "I'm sorry. We can't fight a battle cruiser. We have no weapons, no shields. If we resist, everyone on this station dies." "I understand. We have to surrender you to him. There's no other choice." Valera nodded. She had always known her life was not her own. She was a piece on a board, moved by players more powerful than herself. This was simply another move. "Give me 1 hour," she said. "I need to say goodbye to my husband." The security chief hesitated. then agreed. Valera walked back to her quarters. Her legs felt heavy. Her heart felt empty. She had just started to build something here, something small and quiet and real. Now it would be taken from her, like everything else. Daniel was not in their rooms. She searched the small space, but he was gone. His work clothes hung in the closet. His tools sat on the shelf, but the man himself had vanished. She felt a strange pain at that. She had wanted to see him one last time, to thank him for the tea and the plastic flowers, and the kindness he had shown her, to tell him that he had made her feel human, even though she was not. But perhaps it was better this way. He was a mechanic. What could he do against an admiral and an army? She gathered her few belongings and walked toward the main docking bay. Zorveth's soldiers would be waiting there. She would go quietly, with dignity. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her afraid. The docking bay doors opened. 30 Chthon warriors stood in formation, their weapons raised. They wore the black armor of the admiral's personal guard. Behind them, through the airlock, she could see the corridor leading to the warship. And between her and the soldiers, a single figure stood alone. Daniel. He stood with his back to her, facing the army. He wore his simple work clothes, but in his hand, he held a blade she had never seen before. The metal was dark, almost black, and it seemed to swallow the light around it. Strange symbols were etched into the blade, patterns that hurt her eyes to look at. "Daniel?" she whispered. He did not turn. "Go back inside, Valera." "What are you doing? There are 30 of them." "I know." His voice was calm. "Steady. Go back inside." The lead soldier stepped forward. He was tall, even for a Chthon, with scars on his face and murder in his eyes. "Move aside, human," the soldier commanded. "This does not concern you." "She's my wife," Daniel said simply. "It concerns me." The soldier laughed. "You are one small creature with a knife. We are the Admiral's elite guard. Step aside, or we will cut you down where you stand." Daniel did not move. "This is your last warning," the soldier growled. He raised his weapon. What happened next was too fast for Valera to follow. Daniel moved like water, like shadow, like something that did not belong in a human body. His blade sang through the air. Soldiers fell, screaming, clutching wounds that appeared from nowhere. He flowed between them, never stopping, never slowing. Each movement was perfect. Each strike was precise. The elite guard fired their weapons. Energy beams cut through the air where Daniel had been a moment before. But he was never there. He was always somewhere else, his dark blade finding gaps in their armor, cutting tendons and muscles, dropping them one by one. 11 seconds. It took 11 seconds for 30 of the finest warriors in the Chthon Empire to fall. Daniel stood in the center of the bay, breathing evenly. His blade dripped with blue blood. Around him the soldiers groaned and clutched their wounds. Not dead, Valera realized with shock, but disabled. Every wound was precise. Every cut was designed to stop, not kill. The work of a surgeon, done at the speed of lightning. Daniel finally turned to face her. His eyes were the same tired eyes she knew, but now she understood what lived behind them. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He looked at the blade in his hand like it was a poisonous snake. Then he looked at her, and she saw exhaustion in his face. Not physical tiredness, something deeper. The weariness of a man who had buried himself, only to be dug up again. "I'm someone I hoped I'd never have to be again," he said quietly. The station's alarms continued to blare. Through the airlock, she could hear more soldiers moving in the warship's corridors. This was not over. Zorveth would not stop. He would send more men, more ships, whatever it took. But in that moment, standing in a bay full of fallen warriors, Valira looked at her husband and saw him clearly for the first time. Not a mechanic. Not an ordinary man. Something else entirely. And despite everything, despite the blood and the violence and the fear, she felt safer than she had ever felt in her life. Admiral Zorveth stood in his command center, watching the medical reports scroll across his screen. 30 of his finest warriors, defeated in seconds. Every one of them would live, but none would fight again for months. Some would never hold a weapon properly again. One human had done this. One small, fragile human with a strange blade. Find out who he is, Zorveth commanded his intelligence officer. Search every database, every record. I want to know everything about Daniel Cole. The officer worked quickly, pulling files from Earth's military systems, civilian records, immigration logs. After an hour of searching, he returned to the Admiral with a troubled expression. Sir, there is nothing. What do you mean, nothing? Daniel Cole appears in the system 8 years ago. Before that, he does not exist. No birth certificate, no school records, no family, no history. It's as if he simply appeared out of nowhere. Zorveth slammed his fist against the console. That is impossible. No one appears from nowhere. There is one other thing, sir. His file has been flagged. Any search for his name triggers an alert in Earth's highest military intelligence division. We have already received a warning to stop our investigation. The Admiral leaned back in his chair. A ghost, then. A man that Earth itself wanted to keep hidden. This changed nothing. He would still have the princess. He would still have his throne. But he would bring more ships this time. Enough to crush the station and everything on it. Recall the fleet, he ordered. I want 6 warships here within 3 days. Meanwhile, on the station, Valira sat across from Daniel in their small quarters. The plastic purple flowers still stood on the shelf. The tea kettle still waited on the stove. But everything had changed. Tell me, she said. Tell me what you are. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. He stared at his hands, the hands that had made her tea every morning, that had repaired engines, that had cut down 30 warriors in 11 seconds. Have you ever heard of the Expansion Wars? He asked finally. Yes, the period when humans spread across the galaxy. You fought many species. You won. We won, Daniel agreed, but not because we were stronger. We were weaker than almost everyone we fought. Smaller, softer, shorter lives. We should have lost 100 times. But you did not. No, because we learned. Every species we fought, we studied. We took their fighting styles, their strategies, their weapons. We adapted. We combined. We created something new. He paused. And we created people who could use it all. Valira felt a chill run through her. People like you. The program was called Wraith. They took children, orphans mostly, kids with no families to miss them. They trained us from age 6. Combat, infiltration, assassination. We learned how to move like shadows, how to fight like demons, how to kill without hesitation and disappear without a trace. At the peak, about 200. By the time I left, maybe 20 remained alive. Most of us died on missions. Some couldn't handle what we had become. The ones who survived were broken in different ways. Valira tried to imagine it. A child, taken from everything, shaped into a weapon. No love, no comfort, only training and violence and death. What happened to the program, she asked. Officially, it was shut down 30 years ago. War crimes investigation. Public outrage when some of it leaked. Earth's government claimed they destroyed all records, retired all assets. A bitter smile crossed his face. But you can't retire what we became. You can only bury it and hope it stays buried. And you came here to hide. I came here to stop being what they made me. I wanted to fix engines, make tea, live a quiet life until I died. He finally met her eyes. "I never wanted you to see that part of me." Valera was quiet for a moment. She thought about the kind man who had cleared half his closet for her clothes, who had bought synthetic flowers because he read that her people liked purple, who had asked nothing of her except her company. That man was real, she knew it, but so was the thing that lived underneath. "Zorveth will return," she said. "He will bring more ships." "I know. Can you stop a fleet?" Daniel shook his head. "But I might not have to be alone." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small communication device. It was old, battered, covered in scratches. He stared at it for a long time, as if holding something dangerous. "What is that?" Valera asked. "A link to people I haven't spoken to in 10 years, people like me, the ones who survived." He turned the device over in his hands. "We promised each other we'd only use this in emergencies, life or death situations. Is this not life or death?" "It is." He took a deep breath. "But if I send this message, there's no going back. We'll be exposed. Earth will know we're still alive. Everything we built, all the quiet lives we created, will end." Valera reached across the table and put her hand over his. It was the first time she had touched him willingly. "You could let me go," she said softly. "Let Zorveth take me. Keep your quiet life." Daniel looked at her hand on his. Then he looked at her face. "No," he said simply. "I couldn't." He activated the device and spoke 3 words into it. "Ghost Protocol, Reunion." Then he set the device down and waited. Within hours, the responses began arriving, small messages, encoded and hidden in static. One by one, the ghosts answered. They were coming. Valera watched her husband read each message, his face showing emotions she had never seen before. Relief, fear, hope, love. "Who are they?" she asked. "My family," Daniel said quietly. "The only real family I've ever had." And somewhere across the galaxy, the buried dead began to rise. The first to arrive was a woman named Lisa Warren. She came on a cargo freighter, dressed as a trader, carrying crates of spare parts and dried food. No one looked twice at her. She was plain, middle-aged, with gray streaks in her brown hair and wrinkles around her eyes, the kind of person you forgot the moment you looked away. But when she walked into Daniel's quarters and saw him standing there, her face changed. For just a moment something sharp and dangerous looked out through her eyes. "Danny," she said, "you look old." "You look dead," he replied. "Pretty good disguise." They embraced like soldiers, quick and hard, then pulled apart. Lisa's eyes moved to Valera, studying her with cold precision. "The princess," Lisa said. "She's why we're here." "She's why I called," Daniel corrected. "But you came for me." Same thing, apparently. Over the next 2 days, the others arrived. Pete Grady came on a medical transport, listed as a patient with a brain injury. He was a large man with gentle eyes, who had not spoken a word in 3 years. Something had happened on his last mission, something so terrible that he simply stopped using his voice. But his hands were fast as lightning, and he could still communicate in the silent language the Wraiths had created together. Karim Vasquez arrived hidden inside a shipping container, folded into an impossible space that should have crushed a normal person. She was small, dark-haired, with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. When she unfolded herself from the container, she stretched like a cat, and immediately began counting the weapons hidden on her body. 14 blades, 3 small guns, 2 coils of wire, and a packet of poison wrapped in synthetic skin. "I've missed this," she said cheerfully. Being normal was boring. A man called Nathan Hayes walked off a passenger liner with a priest's collar around his neck. He had found religion after leaving the program, trying to make peace with the things he had done. But when Daniel's message came, he had packed his bag and bought a ticket without hesitation. "God will understand," he told Daniel. "Family comes first." The last two arrived together. Jenny Kim and her brother Ray, twins who had entered the program at age 5 and had never been apart since. They finished each other's sentences, fought like a single organism with 4 arms, and shared a connection that went deeper than words. 7 wraiths in total, the last survivors of a dead program. Men and women who had been turned into weapons as children and had somehow found ways to become human again. Now they sat in Daniel's small quarters, drinking tea, studying maps of the station, and preparing for war. Valera watched them from the corner. She had never seen anything like this group. They moved around each other naturally, without needing to speak. When one reached for a cup, another passed it before they asked. When one stood to stretch, the other shifted to give them room. They were connected in ways that normal people could not understand. "You led them," she said to Daniel quietly. "Before?" "We didn't have leaders," he replied. "We had family. I was just the center, the one who held us together." Lisa had been listening. She walked over and sat beside them, her sharp eyes softening slightly. "He was more than that," Lisa told Valera. "When the program broke us, he put us back together. When missions went bad, he got us home. When we wanted to give up, he reminded us why we kept going." She glanced at Daniel. "We would follow him into hell. Most of us already have." Pete signed something from across the room. Jenny laughed, translating for Valera. "He says we would follow Danny into a room full of Vorgan assassins, armed with nothing but spoons." She paused. "Actually, that happened once, on a mission in the Outer Rim. It wasn't pretty." "For the Vorgan," Ray added with a grin. Valera did not know what to say. These people had dropped their lives, traveled across the galaxy, and walked into certain danger, all because Daniel had asked. "Zorveth has 6 warships," she said. 2,000 soldiers. What can 7 people do against that? The Wraiths exchanged glances. Something passed between them, a silent communication that excluded everyone else. Corinne smiled her sharp smile. "We don't fight armies. We take them apart from the inside." "Explain." Nathan stepped forward, spreading a schematic of a Kethon warship on the table. "Every fleet is a machine. Command structure, communication systems, power supplies, life support. Break enough pieces, and the machine stops working." "We've done this before," Lisa added. "Once, Danny and I disabled an entire invasion fleet, 12 ships. We never fired a single shot. Just cut the right wires, fed the wrong orders, and watched them tear themselves apart." Valera stared at the schematic. The plan was insane. 7 people against 6 warships. It should be impossible. But looking at these quiet, dangerous people, she began to believe. "What do you need from me?" she asked. Daniel looked at her with surprise. "You want to help?" "He is coming for me. This is my fight too." The Wraiths exchanged another look. Ray translated. "He says she has good spirit. Terrible combat skills, but good spirit." "I can learn," Valera said firmly. Daniel studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "We have 2 days before Zorveth arrives. That's enough time to teach you the basics." He handed her a small blade, similar to his but lighter. "First rule of being a Wraith. Always have a knife." "What's the second rule?" Corinne appeared beside her, grinning. "The second rule is there are no rules. We cheat, we lie, we use every dirty trick ever invented. Fair fights are for people who want to die pretty." Valera looked at the blade in her hand. She looked at the circle of dangerous people around her, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. "Teach me," she said. Admiral Zorveth's fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a fist closing around Waystation 12. 6 warships, bristling with weapons, carrying 2,000 of the finest soldiers in the Kethon Empire. Enough firepower to reduce the station to atoms. Enough men to conquer a small planet. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tiny station grow larger in the view screen. This time there would be no warnings, no negotiations. He would board the station, find the princess and her strange husband, and end this embarrassment once and for all. All ships, move to attack formation, he commanded. Prepare boarding parties. The fleet began to shift, spreading out to surround the station. And then, one by one, the ships went dark. On the battlecruiser Fury of Stars, the lights in the command center flickered and died. Emergency power came on, bathing everything in red. The captain screamed orders into a communication system that had suddenly stopped working. In the engine room of Emperor's Wrath, a small woman with a cheerful smile walked calmly through the chaos, cutting power cables with her many knives. By the time the engineers realized she was not supposed to be there, half the ship was without life support. On Burning Thunder, the crew received orders to fire on the flagship. The orders came through official channels, with proper codes, from what appeared to be the Admiral himself. Half the bridge crew followed the orders, before the other half stopped them. Fighting broke out in the corridors. The wraiths moved through the fleet like ghosts, because that was what they were. Pete Grady sealed himself inside a ventilation shaft on one ship, releasing a gas that put every soldier in the forward barracks into a deep sleep. They would wake up in 12 hours, with headaches and confusion. They would not wake up in time to fight. Jenny and Ray Kim worked as a perfect unit on another vessel, one drawing attention while the other sabotaged systems. They moved through the ship like water through cracks, never seen, never caught, leaving destruction in their wake. Nathan Hayes walked openly through the corridors of divine justice, wearing a stolen officer's uniform and carrying forged orders. No one questioned him. He was calm, confident, authoritative. He ordered soldiers to reinforce areas that did not need reinforcement. He sent engineers to repair systems that were not broken. He created chaos simply by being believable. Lisa Warren sat in a maintenance closet on the flagship, connected to the ship's internal network through a stolen terminal. Her fingers flew across the keys, rewriting orders, redirecting communications, turning the Admiral's own command structure against him. And Daniel Cole walked through the darkness toward the bridge. He moved without sound, without hurry. Soldiers passed him in the corridors, running to deal with emergencies that did not exist. None of them saw him. He was a shadow among shadows, a ghost among the living. The bridge doors were sealed with the Admiral's personal security code. Daniel pulled out a small device, pressed it against the lock, and waited 3 seconds. The doors slid open. Zorveth stood in the center of the bridge, surrounded by 50 of his personal guards. He had gathered them here when the chaos began, knowing that something was wrong, preparing for an attack he did not understand. When Daniel walked through the doors, every weapon in the room pointed at him. "Human," Zorveth said. His voice was steady, but his eyes showed fear. He had seen the reports. He knew what this man could do. "You have caused me a great deal of trouble." "I'm just getting started," Daniel replied. "You are one creature. I have 50 of my best warriors. The mathematics are simple." Daniel looked around the room, studying each guard, calculating angles and distances. The dark blade hung at his side, waiting. "Your warriors in the docking bay," he said. "They were your best too. 11 seconds. There are more here. Yes, it might take 15. Zorveth's jaw tightened. He was not a coward. He had fought in 100 battles. But looking at this small, quiet human, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Doubt. "Kill him," the Admiral ordered. The guards charged. Daniel moved. It was not a fight. It was a demonstration. The wraiths had been trained to fight armies, to disable enemies without killing when possible, to be efficient above all else. Daniel flowed through the guards like smoke through fingers. His blade found gaps in armor, cut tendons, disabled without destroying. Men screamed and fell, clutching wounds that would heal but would end their fighting days. 15 seconds. 50 guards lay on the floor, groaning, bleeding, alive. Daniel stood before the admiral, his blade pressed against Zorvet's throat. He was not even breathing hard. "Listen carefully," Daniel said, his voice soft and dangerous. "I was married to her by your people's rights. By your own ancient laws, she is my family, my blood, my responsibility." The blade pressed slightly harder, drawing a thin line of blue blood. "There is nothing in this galaxy that will take my family from me. Not your fleet, not your empire, not you. Do you understand?" Zorvet's voice came out as a whisper. "Yes." "Good." Daniel stepped back, lowering his blade. "You will leave this system. You will tell your emperor that the marriage stands. You will never speak of this again." "And if I refuse?" Daniel tilted his head slightly. "Then I will come back. And next time, I won't be so gentle." He turned and walked toward the door. Behind him, Zorvet slumped against the command console, shaking. The ghosts disappeared as quietly as they had come. One by one, the wraiths made their way back to the station, leaving chaos and confusion in their wake. By the time the fleet sorted itself out, the 7 of them were sitting in Daniel's quarters, drinking tea. Zorvet's fleet retreated 3 hours later. In the Kethon Empire, the Sovereign received a full report of the battle. He watched footage of a single human dismantling his rogue admiral's fleet. He saw his forgotten daughter standing beside this man afterward, unafraid, unbroken. For the first time, he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake by sending her away. On Earth, intelligence officers detected the activation of ghost protocols. Wraith signatures, long dormant, suddenly active. They discussed options, debated responses, considered investigations. In the end, they closed the files and walked away. Some things were better left buried. On Waystation 12, life slowly returned to normal. The wraiths said their goodbyes, quiet embraces, silent promises, the understanding that they would come again if called. They scattered back to their hidden lives, their fake identities, their attempts at being ordinary. Daniel returned to his workshop. He picked up a wrench and began repairs on a freighter engine. His hands were steady, patient, skilled. Valera appeared in the doorway. She carried 2 cups of tea. "You could have told me," she said, settling beside him. "Would you have believed me?" She thought about it. A mechanic who was secretly one of the deadliest warriors in the galaxy. A quiet man who could disable a fleet with 6 friends and a knife. "No," she admitted, "probably not. So I showed you instead." She handed him a cup. He took it, their fingers touching briefly. "What happens now?" she asked. Daniel looked at her. For the first time since she had known him, he smiled without reservation. Not the small, tired smile of a man carrying heavy burdens. A real smile. "Now we figure out what ordinary looks like," he said. "Together." Outside the window, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, empires rose and fell, wars raged, and the galaxy continued its endless dance. But in a small workshop on a quiet station, a princess and a ghost drank tea together and began to build something neither of them had ever expected. A home, a family, a future. And somewhere in the darkness, the blade rested, silent and patient, waiting for the day it might be needed again. But not today. Today was for tea and quiet and peace. Today was for being ordinary.